one of the things that I love in any media is when you get down to the nitty gritty of this is how this organization was built. This is how
Yeah.
it was run. Here's the hierarchy. Here's where they get their money from. And that's something that I fucking love about Pacific Rim. They literally go
Yeah.
through the details of the, oh yeah, this was approved by the UN, this is their ranks, you have your marshals, they have a
Yeah.
hierarchy, they have a structure, and they have their own uniforms and stuff like that. And that's what I love about Pacific Rim,
Yeah.
as silly as it is. I
Yeah.
love the world building, and it's quite clear that Del Toro thought about this shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that was one of the biggest issues I have and always will have with Godzilla King of the Monsters. Is I absolutely do not like how suddenly Monarch out of nowhere has a flying V, has a giant
Legit.
flying fortress.
That's legit such a good point because I talked to you recently. It was just through a private message.
Yeah.
I rewatched Skull Island because I haven't seen that
Oh,
movie since I initially saw
yeah.
it, and it's they just kind of like 'cause they just kind of name drop Monarch like halfway through the movie about it and
Well,
like
it's
talk
the
about what the
birth of
real
an
end game is.
organization, isn't it?
It was weird. It kind of is, but like I don't buy that like by the 2014 movie they're this like underground like I didn't buy that at all. And with Skull Island too, I want to mention with that movie is I had a unique experience with it because I don't really have this too often where I rewatch a movie and my feelings on it are basically entirely the same. Like not I don't have much takeaway from that movie. Like I don't dislike that movie, but I also don't love that movie. And it was kind of the same on the rewatch.
It's
Like I
I
didn't
yeah. My opinions of
yeah.
Kong Skull Island have grown with every viewing.
But even my initial viewing I didn't like, but I didn't really get much out of the rewatch. I was just like, yeah, it was a fun movie again. Like,
A brings up a good point, and this is going to
what
be
do
the
you say?
first time I fucking bring up the chat. Hi guys.
Holy shit!
The logo for Monarch, John Goodman is Monarch. He is the beginning of Monarch. They
Okay,
are kind
okay,
of, and this is what I got from my viewings of Skull Island, is that John Goodman, he's kind of building this organization. It's just on the ground
yeah,
floor right now. It's just started.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
becoming a thing. It's becoming a thing, but it's not a thing yet. Not truly
yeah,
a thing yet. And by 2014, it has become a much larger thing. The thing is, with 2014, I always thought Monarch was much more grounded because
yeah,
Monarch still had to answer to all of these other people. The U.S. government, the Japanese government, with the
yeah,
Mutos,
yeah,
and it's still very grounded because the members of Monarch were all like these scientists. They weren't necessarily with the military. They team up with the
yeah,
military,
yeah,
but then of course Godzilla comes and so on and so forth. And then of course in the next movie they are a full blown military organization,
yeah, yeah,
but yet they have, and this is the stuff that just irks me. Whenever I see something,
yeah,
the military arm of Monarch in Godzilla King of the Monsters are clearly wearing U.S. Army uniforms,
hmm,
to the point that you can actually see some of them wearing the United States emblem on their
yeah,
arm. But yet they are completely, and this also I think goes into just lack of research, but you see the guy with the full beard, and I'm like, if you were really in the army you wouldn't have a full beard.
hmm,
The most accurate depiction of a person in the military in that movie was the black captain there. She was the one that
yeah,
was giving the
yeah,
order. She was
yeah,
great. I loved her.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
because she seemed like she knew what she was doing in a situation that was completely out of her control. And there was a logic to the order she was giving. She cared about her men. She acted like an actual army guy. And why that
yeah,
irks
yeah,
me so much, and why they bring that up, and before somebody goes, oh, you are just looking too much into it. Godzilla 2014 went through painstaking research of how the army acts in certain situations, to the point that they really paid attention to the uniforms. They really paid attention to the tactics. The airdrop scene was amazing because of how the
yeah.
attention
That
to
scene
detail
is still
on that. And I always point out the scene that really got me on board with, yes, they did their research on 2014, was when Admiral Stenz enters an HQ. He's coming in from outside. The moment he steps inside, he takes off his cover. He takes off his hat.
Yeah.
And that was the moment I said they did their research. They paid attention to what they needed to do. Yeah. None of that in King of the Monsters. All of that stuff thrown out the window. And I'm like, this is stuff that can really build your world.
Yeah.
Just little details like that.
I wish I had some kind of input on this, because obviously I know nowhere near as much about this as you do.
Yeah, I don't know everything either. I know the basics.
Yeah.
But a lot of this, I asked people about it. Like, I asked from people in the army and stuff like that. Like, because when I'm writing the Godzilla saga, a huge thing is the military aspect of it. And so I would literally message some of my friends in the army, what's the protocol if you're in a room and you have your cover on? What's the protocol? I just ask people who are actually in it. It's not that hard.
No, yeah, that's also obviously that's a really good way to write something you don't know. Like, it's... Who'd have thought you can just go and ask somebody something and they'll
go and
give
ask
you
somebody,
information.
hey, let's just say hypothetically, there's a giant monster destroying the city. But yeah, that I didn't like any of that. But there was so much potential with G 2014, which is still my favorite out of all these movies. And then
I think that is the strongest one too.
And then
I think just as a
Kong
movie,
Skull Island also really was hinting at this being an organization. I'm like, this is cool. I'm liking what they're doing. And then Godzilla King of the Monsters comes out, and they're just like, nope, this is what we are, and we're not going to explain it anymore. I'm like,